Kuzampo, you are watching Bhutan This Week, our weekly news magazine program with me, Pupgan. Our top stories this week. His Majesty the King grants Thar to the new Health Secretary and 2 ambassadors and promotes 11 armed force officers. Bhutan and Bangladesh to improve trade through road and railway connection, internet and cooperation in hydroelectricity. And Thimphu City FC confident of putting up a good fight against its Maldivian rival at the regional AFC Cup qualifiers. His Majesty the King granted Thar to formally appoint the new Health Secretary and ambassadors to Kuwait and Thailand. His Majesty also granted promotion to 11 officers from the Royal Bhutan Army and the Royal Bodyguards.
Dr. Pandup Singh is the new Health Secretary. He was the Director General of the Department of Medical Services at the Health Ministry. Chitim Tenzin, who was serving as Zimpe Om at the office of the Gevi Zimpe, has been appointed as the new ambassador to Kuwait. Kinzang Doji, the former Hadzongda, has been appointed as the new ambassador to Thailand. As per the Constitution, His Majesty the King appoints the secretaries to the government and ambassadors on the recommendation of the Prime Minister, who obtains nominations from the Royal Civil Service Commission. His Majesty also granted promotions to 9 officers from the Royal Bhutan Army and 2 officers from the Royal Bodyguards. The officers have been promoted to the rank of Colonel. His Majesty the King is the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. This is Sringdandup, BBS News.
Bhutan and Bangladesh will be looking into improving trade through road and railway connection, internet and cooperation in hydroelectricity. The 2 prime ministers came up with the view during a meeting in Bangladesh.
The Bangladeshi Prime Minister reiterated to offer Bhutan full access to its seaports and offered internet bandwidth at a friendly rate. As per the joint statement issued last night, the 2 Prime Ministers agreed to explore the possibility of rail connectivity between the countries through the recently inaugurated Chilahati-Haldibari rail interlink between Bangladesh and India. They decided to have a secretary-level meeting between Bhutan, Bangladesh and India on the trilateral cooperation in hydroelectricity. Bangladesh also agreed to increase the annual MBBS quota from 15 to 20 seats for Bhutanese students. The Prime Minister joined the celebration of the birth centenary of Bangabandhu and the Golden Jubilee of Independence at the National Parade Ground yesterday. Speaking at the celebration, the Prime Minister said his visit to Bangladesh this time was solely to pay tribute to Bangabandhu and conveyed greeting and prayers from His Majesty the King. The artists from the Royal Academy of Performing Arts joined the celebration. The Prime Minister returned to Bhutan this morning. He is currently undergoing a 21-day mandatory quarantine at Khasadapchu in Thimphu. For Sangeet Chizum, Sonomongdi, BBS News.
While the COVID pandemic distorted global commerce, it only narrowed the trade deficit in the country. Trade deficit occurs when a country's imports exceeds its exports. The deficit in terms of only goods last year reduced to 18 billion yutam from 21 billion in 2019.
According to the reports from the Department of Revenue and Customs, the increase in the export of electricity was a major contributor in narrowing the trade deficit.
One of the major reasons for the narrowing in trade deficit is because electricity export has increased. In 2020, the electricity of export is 27 billion compared to 2019, 16 billion, which is a hike by 11 billion. So export of electricity has contributed towards narrowing the trade deficit.
She added, the increase in the export of electricity was mainly driven by the commissioning of the Mangdichu project in June 2019. The improvement in the trade deficit can also be attributed to the closure of the country's border gates, which remained closed since March last year.
Total import for the year 2020, including imports of electricity, is 66 billion, whereas export of export in 2020, including the export of electricity, is 48 billion dula, which gives us trade deficit of 18 billion in 2020. Whereas in 2019, we have a trade deficit of 21 billion dechi. So when comparing it with 2019 trade deficit, there's a reduction of trade deficit by 3 billion dechi. In terms of percentage margin, about 15%.
The sharp drop in the price of crude oil, the decrease in imports of raw materials in manufacturing and construction sector, labor shortages, and reduced external demand also played a vital role in narrowing the trade deficit. Ishidoji for PBS News.
Since its launch last October, the National Credit Guarantee Scheme has approved 42 business proposals. This translates to more than 137 million yutam. The scheme is to enhance access to finance during the pandemic. Under it, the government guarantees a portion of the loans availed for establishing a viable business entity.
Jamgin Yeshidoji founded the home maintenance services based in Thimphu in 2019. The company, which deals with civil works such as masonry, plumbing, welding, carpentry, paintings and other electrical works, has been doing well. But amid the COVID-19 situation, the demand for its services increased. The company needed to expand.
Initially, we took up small projects. Without much support, we had to limit our business scale. So the scheme came as a huge relief for us. There was no collateral required. We all come from a humble background and it is difficult for us to source funds privately.
The story has been no different for the remaining 41 beneficiaries of the scheme. They are among the applications over 170 the three partnering banks BOBL, BDBL and National CSI Development Bank received to date.
I think it was launched at a time when a lot of businesses were not doing well. And if you look at the creative sector, besides tourism, creative sector has been really affected by the pandemic. And I think for SAMU, it did come at a really, really good time. Because as a startup, access to finance is one of the biggest challenges, especially in Bhutan. So there is only so much that you can, get through banks. And without collateral, again, it's not possible at all to raise the kind of finances required to set up a company like SAMU.
According to the National Credit Guarantee Scheme Facility Program, the banks approve business proposals covering 4 major thrust areas: import substitution, export promotion, innovation and technology, and employment during the COVID-19 situation.
Some say the number is less, but I would like to say the number is good. It shows that we are not approving or we are not taking into consideration any project that is coming on the table. I would like to commend the due diligence of the banks. The banks are also really scrutinizing the proposals given the nature of the scheme, and they are taking only serious proposals, viable proposals on board.
Meanwhile, the scheme has come under the opposition's scrutiny. In its letter to the Prime Minister, the Drukfinsum Sokpa said although the move was commendable, it was unlawful. The party questioned the legality of the government taking up the role of a guarantor for private loans. The government said the scheme is well within the laws and the risks involved are acknowledged. As the last option for losses incurred due to failed projects, the Finance Ministry will propose appropriation through money bills. All legal processes will also be followed if the government has to use public money for the scheme. Samtan Dolkar, BBS News.
Every time you open social media, there is at least one person or organization seeking help or donations. And netizens have been quick to respond or offer help. According to the Home Ministry, seeking donations through social media without approval is increasing and has become a concern. The ministry says it is illegal, although there is no specific act or regulation.
The donations pour in once people see social media posts seeking donations, and not many verifies the information. With more than 680,000 Bhutanese using the internet, seeking donations has never been so easy. But that is where deceptive and fraudulent activities could take place.
Some of the people might misuse this kind of platform, and also into the future this kind of funds can be misused for illegal purposes as well. This can also lead to money laundering and also financing of criminal activities. If people are found to be misusing this platform and soliciting donations through social media by fraudulent means, applicable penal code provisions can be applied, and one could be subjected to criminal proceedings.
But some are allowed to collect donations.
Going by the existing legal frameworks, the civil society organizations and the religious organization can solicit donations and public contributions, and that too in according to the prevailing laws.
But if people deceive, then according to the penal code, they will be charged with deceptive practice. The offence will be a petty misdemeanor or a misdemeanor with a prison term ranging from 1 month to 3 years. Fortunately, police said they have not registered any cases. This is Ringdandup, BBS News.
Gastric cancer is the most common form of cancer in the country with the highest mortality. To help with early detection, the Health Ministry is carrying out a nationwide mass screening. It is a part of the Health Flagship Program, which will be completed within 3 years. The mass screening, which started last month, is currently ongoing in Mongar.
According to health specialists, high salt intake, smoking, low dietary fiber, and family history are some of the causes of gastric or stomach cancer. Helicobacter pylori bacteria are the major cause of this form of cancer, which is formed from food and environment. For every 100,000 people, more than 8,000 men and over 5,000 women have died from gastric cancer in the last 5 years, according to the Health Ministry.
If you are found to have H. pylori infection, irrespective of signs and symptoms, you need to treat with antibiotics. Now, after treating with the antibiotics also, you need to follow up, because this bacteria, it is one bacteria which is really difficult to eradicate. Maintain your weight, do your daily exercise, cut down on your alcohol, stop smoking. So rather than taking processed food, switch on to your green vegetables, drink plenty of water. So these are the major things which we can do, Imel.
Till now, more than 100 people have turned up for the screenings in Mongar. The target population for the mass screening is between 18 to 75 years of age.
Government spends a lot of money on referring patients outside the country, and these are mostly cancer patients, and most of the time these are in very advanced stages where the prognosis is quite poor, so there's very low rates of recovery. So in terms of overall, like for the country, if we detect early or if we prevent the cancers, there should be a lot of savings in terms of resources. For the individuals also, with early detection or prevention of cancer, so their lives will be much better.
The next screening campaign will be held in Wande district, followed by Paro, Punakha, and then Gasa. These places are found to have high prevalence of gastric cancer. Along with gastric cancer, screening for cervical and breast cancers are also done at the same time. Kyalzam Chotin for PBS News.
Plot owners in Tagapilla town of Tagana are concerned over the delay in getting approval to start construction on their land. They were notified to vacate their previous settlements by officials in December last year for demarcation works and were told they would be granted construction approval after a month. It has been around 3 months since then, but they have heard nothing from the Dzongkhag.
The district engineer sector sent out a notification in the beginning of December last year, stating that land demarcation works for the new town would start and finish within a month. Plot owners were also told to dismantle the old structures. All of them constructed and moved into temporary sheds on leased lands. Today, all of them continue to run their businesses from the temporary sheds, with some paying as high as around 7,000 yutam a month as rent.
We were notified to shift our shops to temporary sheds after dismantling our old structures in December last year. Accordingly, we shifted there within 20 days of the notification. We were told that plot allotment would be done immediately, but it is still not yet carried out.
It would be good if relevant officials could carry out land demarcation works soon so that we can start our construction works. We are facing problems such as drinking water shortage, poor road condition and parking space shortage when we run business from our temporary sheds. It has been 3 months now since we shifted here.
Drum holders here have been asking us when relevant officials will come here for plot allotment. We have informed the Dzongkhag administration and they assured us that officials from the Works and Human Settlement Ministry will be here soon for plot allotment, but nobody has visited us yet. We would be grateful if the government could speed up the works since the plot owners are worried of their construction works getting delayed.
Meanwhile, the district engineer refused to comment on the delay of the demarcation works and about other developments of the new town. His Majesty the King granted land ownership certificates to 36 plot owners in 2017. For Pema Sewang in Dagana, Sunam Pem for BBS News.
Travel time between Wangdi and Dagana is expected to become shorter once a direct road between the two districts is completed. A 60-kilometer road is currently under construction and is expected to be ready in a year.
Around 16 kilometers of the road will be constructed by Dagana Dzongkhag office, while the Wangdi Dzongkhag administration will construct around 8 kilometers. Works were initially started in 2019 by Dagana officials who constructed around 35 kilometers of the road. But the project was stopped after it was found that some of the area fell under Wangdi Phorang district. Now, with the memorandum of understanding signed between the two districts, works are in full swing. Once complete, the bypass will reduce the travel time between Dagana and Wangdi Phorang by over 2 hours.
The distance between Dagana Zone and Sungkosh at the moment is 87 kilometers, whereas the distance between Dagana Zone and Kamichu in Wangdi Phorang is only around 72 kilometers. Therefore, besides Dagana Dzongkhag, the bypass will also benefit as a trade route for 7 districts located to the north and south of the Dagana district.
If you do not have a connectivity between the two Dzongkhags, then I think there will be no point talking about development and economic development or all that vibrant we are talking about. So I saw this road, this highway, secondary highway is a very vital one, and that's why I have initiated. I have never stopped initiating, and then even the present government we've been talking.
Moreover, the road connectivity is expected to help Pelingchuak and Tezagiwak, where people have started to resettle elsewhere because of the remoteness of the place.
Since wild animals kept on damaging crops, the farmers in the Chiok were discouraged to grow crops, and most of them left the Chiok and resettled near Dagana Zone. But once the road is complete, I'm sure many of them will return back.
The government is investing around 36 million year-term for the road connectivity project. For Pema Thawang in Tagana, Kilidem, PBS News.
Age is catching up on the lone guardian of the art of blacksmithing in Deotang Gewok in Samdubjonkar. Alongside, there are no apprentices showing interest in learning the skill. It may not be long before the art disappears from the Gewok forever.
For now, Seringdoji continues to breathe life into the ancient craft. He has been forging knives, sickles and other agricultural tools since he learned the trade some 4 decades ago. Although physically taxing, the long years of practicing blacksmithing have been rewarding for the 60-year-old.
I make around 20,000 newton monthly from making tools. I raised my 5 children as a blacksmith. I don't have to go anywhere to do the job, which I first learned from another blacksmith.
He says, despite alternatives, people continue to buy his products for their superior quality.
Some prefer tools made in India and say mine is expensive. But unlike the ones I forge, the imported ones do not last for years.
While his tools would last, the art may not. Being the only remaining blacksmith in the Gewok, Tsering can only wish he would meet someone as devout as he was in learning the skills. He is always ready to teach.
I don't know what will happen in the future when I'm gone. These days, the younger generation is not interested to learn blacksmithing. I know my children would not practice the trade after me. If I also give up, villagers could face a shortage of farm tools while the border gates remain closed for long.
For now, the fire will continue to burn at Tsering's forge. Hammers will strike hot metals too. But all these are expected to last only as long as Tsering has the energy. For Kilewanchu in Samdubjonkar, Sunampem for BBS News.
The Maldives will host this year's South Asia Zone's AFC Cup qualifiers matches. This means Thimphu City Football Club, the champions of the Bhutan Premier League 2020, will face Club Eagles in their home ground for the preliminary round 1 of the AFC Cup 2021. The match will be played at the Mole National Stadium on 7th April.
With the official confirmation of the centralized venue for the qualifier match announced as the Maldives recently, Thimphu City FC has an uphill task to overcome facing a host team.
In terms of venue, it was the last venue that I had hoped for, because in terms of logistics is the furthest. Like for example, we in the South Asia region, if we had were going to play in Nepal or something, it would have been much better. So in that respect, I think not only in terms of the duration, the time taken to get there, even in terms of expenses and all, so it is the worst that we could have hoped for.
Nevertheless, Thimphu City FC are confident of putting up a good fight. They will leave for the game in the coming week.
Right now, their league is going on. So in terms of match fitness and all, they should be much better off than us. But right now, our opponent is on their second last in the table. So we feel that maybe their form isn't that great also, and that's giving us some hope. And we are actually hopeful that we will at least beat them.
If Thimphu City FC wins the match, they will play against Dhaka Abahani of Bangladesh in the second round of the qualifiers. And if their winning streak continues, they could face the Indian Giants Bengaluru FC in the playoffs. This is Pasang Doji for BBS News.
That's all we have for you for this week. Thank you for watching.